All right, let's go back for a second. You lived in Miami
Yeah.
and South Florida.
Hmm.
Okay. And then you started your sites, right? You started to, well, when you got a little bit older, your
Yeah, when I
travel
was
blog.
17, actually, I
When
started.
you started when you were 17.
When I
Wait,
was
how old
17.
are you now?
I'm 29. I just turned 29 recently.
Wow, you're a kid. Wow.
I was wondering when that'll stop being a thing.
My son is 1 year younger than you. Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, I was traveling for 10 years around the world.
Wow. So how did that start?
It started 17 with a trip to Africa when I graduated high school. I went to Zambia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa for like a month. And I fell in love with the idea that you could just do that. I started watching when I was like 16, 17 in high school. I started watching the first generation of travel vloggers, which actually became a career for people.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that that was even something you could do. So I went on this trip to Africa, met a bunch of people who were kind of living like that. They were just on a gap year, 2 years, whatever. And I was enamored by the idea. I tried doing a semester in college and then realized very quickly, I was like, I want to go back to that. So I just started working whatever job I could. I did everything. I worked at a puppy store selling teacup puppies in Miami. I was a paddleboard instructor. I worked in a Mexican kitchen. I worked in an Amazon warehouse. Anything I could do to make money. I worked as a photographer. I'd quit the job and go out and travel. Until 2017, I was here in Israel, and one of my videos went viral of me sailing on a cargo ship. I had gotten aboard a cargo ship a year earlier and sailed across the Atlantic Ocean for a month.
Wow.
Documented the whole journey, went super viral. It was on the front page of the internet, millions of views. And all of a sudden I had a little bit of money to play with. And I was like, okay, let's rinse and repeat and let's see if we can make a career out of this. 2017, I circled the globe, literally around the world. I went from London to Seoul, South Korea without touching a plane, just by trains, buses, boats. Then I went to Southeast Asia, Japan, Hawaii, back to America, circled America in a bus, and then
Wow.
came back, moved to New York City, and just built a career for myself doing, like, leveling myself up and up over and over again until 2022 when I was here in Israel and actually met Inon that summer. I dived deep into the conflict, trying to understand the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on a very deep level. I sat with Samaritans. I sat with
Why did
troops.
you do that?
I think I started feeling a little bit like the travel world was a little purposeless for me.
1 second. When you were doing all the travel vlogging, was there any mention of your religion? Did you ever talk about being Jewish?
For the first couple years, no, I was afraid. I genuinely was afraid until I built like thick skin. Probably around the time I was 2021, I decided I was like, I don't know, I'm not afraid or ashamed to be Israeli or a Jew. And I actively started coming to Israel too and promoting tourism here. I worked with the tourism board. I worked with a bunch of groups here promoting tourism. It was always with like a background of coexistence also. So I would go to like Bethlehem and Jericho and also promote tourism to the Palestinian territories. And that's what it was. I always call it like Shaft Hasbara. I would always come. I would talk really great things about the country. I had the #1 travel guide on Israel for years.
Wow.
Like maybe 6 or 7 years, I was the #1. We looked up travel Israel. I was #1.
Dude.
So I traveled and walked the country up and down. I knew every corner. I still know every corner of this country. So I felt like I could talk about it, but I never ever dived into the conflict. It's okay. That's me. I never dived into the conflict to talk about politics or, what my family went through. I made one video about the Farhud, which was the pogrom that my grandparents went through in Iraq in like 2017 or 18, and I never talked about it again because I just felt in that space, in the travel vlogging space, it's all about good vibes, bro. And it's a lot of like white people from the Western world who don't have family trauma, and nothing bad about those people. They're lovely people. I enjoyed my time with them, but I never felt I was always the only person who looked like me, talked like me, was of my religion in those spaces. I
Wow.
was always surrounded by people who came from a totally different world. So I never felt comfortable like, Ma, now I'm going to start talking about my grandparents being ethnically cleansed from Iraq while we're sitting around a bonfire playing Wonderwall. Like, I'm not going to start bringing out past trauma about being a Jew, having to hide my Magen David in certain places. Like, it was never the space. So I definitely started feeling like I was longing for a deeper purpose. And when I came here in 2022, I really like dived deep into that.
And then October 7th, the
Yeah.
following year.
Yeah. Well, so 2022, I was here. And then
Did you fully move to Israel, or you were just here,
no, I
like,
was here for
visiting?
like 4 months. I
Okay.
made this incredible series that got millions of views online. I was really like, the idea was dive deep into the conflict with no filters. I sat with very questionable people in the West Bank, like Hamas affiliated, and I sat with, I went to Nablus, I went to Ramallah as a tourist. I was walking around, I was interacting with Palestinians, interacting with the Druze, with the Bedouins, with the Samaritans, with the Hebrew Israelites, with the ultra Orthodox in Masharim. I went deep inside. I embedded with them for a couple of days just to try to understand and piece it together. And the conclusion I walked away with was, if you're saying you understand the conflict, you're already wrong. Because I did the work, I did everything you need to do, and I still don't have 100% an idea because it's so complex, it's so complicated. And then left and went back to Asia, traveled around Asia for a year, trying to implement everything I learned in Israel in a series around Asia, sunk myself into debt, missed that, like, just terrible series, didn't do good for my channel at all. Um, and then I was in Asia when October 7th happened,
Oh, you weren't here.
and I was presented with this opportunity of like, do I dive deep into the world of Israel advocacy with everything I learned in the previous year and throughout my life, or do I keep on the current trend of being like a family-friendly hippie travel vlogger?
And
And I made one Hasbara video, one Israel advocacy video on October 10th when I was in the Philippines. I was very distraught. I didn't know what to do. I just felt like I had to speak up. I made a video. It starts in Arabic. I sit down, very serious, say assalamu alaikum, and then I start reading all the names in Arabic of the people that Hamas murdered on October 7th. Of all the Arabs that Hamas murdered on October 7th. I fixated specifically on this one guy, which I'd love to tell his story real quick.
paramedic.
The paramedic,
Yeah.
Awad Darawshi,
Yeah.
who was a paramedic in the Nova Music Festival. I think he was 23 years old. He was saving Jews. He left, called his brother Muhammad on the phone, and told him, Hamas is here. I'm going back in. I'm going to try to save more people. And because I'm a Muslim, because I speak Arabic, I believe I'm going to be able to save more people, and I'll be able to, reason with them. And his brother Muhammad begged him not to go back in because he knew for sure this was going to be the end. He went back in, and he was found dead at the Nova Music Festival after, I think it was around 2 days after, when Saad was in there and Mada was in there. And his story really inspired me. It pushed me for a while because I saw this is my perceived enemy, an Arab Muslim of Israel. Even Arab Muslims in Israel, sometimes we perceive them as our enemies, as Jews. But I was like, no. My whole advocacy journey is based in the honor of him and the Arabs that were murdered on October 7th. I see that as the most powerful thing. They're the ones who drive me. My criticism of the Arab world, my jokes with the Arab world, my criticism of Islam, or not Islam, but Muslims and the way that they behave to us, all stems from what I saw on October 7th and how ruthlessly Arabs were murdered. It disgusted me, and it also inspired me to speak up. So I made that video. It went super viral. My first Hezbollah video like took off in a bunch of Israeli circles, and then I panicked. And I said, wow, that's terrifying. This is going to change my life if I dive into this. People were messaging me, you got to dive into this. People like Nathalie Dadon shared it, and all these big people that I didn't even know at the time were sharing the video all over the internet. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I should dive into this.
And this was just a feeling that you had to make it. You had no
It just came
plan. Yeah.
The Mossad didn't pay me, I promise. Nobody's ever paid me. No organization really has ever paid me. But I just felt like I had to say something because I had friends who were 1 minute with me in the Philippines who had to literally deploy in Gaza 24 hours later and were leaving in mass. And I was in the Philippines sitting there with my arms like, what am I doing? Like, what should I do? What is one doing? I'm not a soldier. I didn't serve in the army. I'm not qualified to go and help. What can I do in this situation? I have 250,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. Maybe I can do something. So I made a few videos, and then I panicked. Then I sat for 3 months, and I just thought and it's actually a period of time that I'm not so super proud of. If I'm speaking honestly, I'm not proud that it didn't come to me automatically to just jump into it, but it was also this big decision of I'm deleting everything I worked on in the last 10 years. Like, I know once I dive into this, there's no going back anymore.
Really?
Of course, the IRGC, you become a target immediately. You become a target of all the terrorist groups when you and I have a big platform. I had already a big sizable channel. It's not just the easy thing to say, all right.
You lost a lot of followers?
Tons in the beginning, tons. Lost a lot of followers and a lot of friends. I lost all my
Really?
sponsors. Yeah, I lost every single sponsor I had on my YouTube channel for the first 10 years, which were basically my rock. They were the ones that made me money, was my sponsors,
Why?
because I was talking about Israel,
And all of them were against Israel?
especially in the beginning of the war. Not I don't know if I want to say against Israel,
They
but
just didn't wanna enter the
the
conflict.
genocide started October 8th, and the PR war that they put against us started October 8th. So immediately Israel became the enemy of the world. People who want to pretend like it's just because the war has been going on for 2 years. No, no. We became the devil, the Antichrist, whatever you want to call it, on October 8th. The second we decided we're not going to just let people massacre us, we became the enemy of the world. And so standing up for that, you become part and parcel part of that. I had people who I was living with near in the Philippines, friends who I'd been living in the Philippines for around 5 years at the time, turn on me completely, like say the most horrific shit you could ever imagine to me,
To your face?
to my face, through text messages, behind my back. These are people who lived in my house at certain points, or I lived at theirs, who we survived a typhoon together, who we raised money with, who I would spend my days surfing with and cooking with, and really close friendships, who I now 2 years later see them liking posts of Nazi and Hail Hitler stuff
Oy
on
vey.
Facebook.
Oy vey.
So I've said this a few times. I would never, ever, ever compare it to what my grandparents went through in Iraq, but maybe it's like 1% of what maybe those feelings felt, because in Iraq, they thought they were a part of something. They thought they were part of the Iraqi community. They thought they were Iraqi. They thought they were Arabs. And then very quickly, the community there reminded them that they're not. So where I was in the Philippines, I felt like I was home after a very long time for searching for home. And very quickly, the people around me, because I'm a Jew and because of what Israel has to do to protect itself in this region, reminded me, no, you're not, this isn't home. You're not welcome here. This isn't it.
They remind us on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was a very, very tough thing to take in. Like
I'm sure.
I built a house there. I'd been living there for a while now. And so after 3 months of sitting and hesitating, it reached a boiling point. I just saw the propaganda, and I saw us doing a fairly terrible job as well. And I was like, now I actually feel like I'm needed, and I feel like I might be an asset to the PR war. I'm going in, and I packed my whole life up. I sold everything, one suitcase, put it all in, flew one way to Israel. No plan, no nothing.
And you made Aliyah?
It's complicated, but yes, kind
Yep.
of. It's complicated. The Aliyah process is complicated.
Yeah.
Specifically for me too, because I lived here in the past, went back. So it's not, I wouldn't say I'm not like Aliyah, like a typical Aliyah, but yes, something like that. But it's Aliyah with purpose. It's itnatavut. It's like I consider what I did the first year and a half, like as close as it can be to my national service or to my army service, because I was homeless for 3-4 months. I was sleeping on people's couches and on the floor. I have family and stuff, but like none of them are in a good position to be able to host me. So I came here without a support system at all.
Wow.
I was basically like just wandering around from people's houses. I sunk myself into debt paying for rent month to month here, and for editors to create the content I was trying to do, until like last February, where it really hit very big for me on all the platforms, and I actually started making money and turned this into a career. But for a year and a half, it was very, very, very difficult.
What's your lesson from that? What do you learn from that experience?
Honestly, is a belief in Hashem. Like I doubted myself a lot throughout the journey. I had a lot of moments where any of my friends know, actually, not just my friends, but my community on YouTube knows, people who are watching this are probably going to know, who are from YouTube, how much I spoke about money in that year and a half. I lost who I was. Like, I was so stressed under financial burden and not knowing if this was the right decision. I kept on doubting myself, because I have to explain. I went from living in the jungle in a universe I had created for myself, a very peaceful reality where I had access to travel anywhere I wanted, whenever I wanted. That was my job. If I wanted to wake up one day in Kenya, I could wake up one day in Kenya. If I wanted to wake up one day in Bangkok, that was my job. It was a very self-serving reality. There was no higher purpose to it other than what I perceived was inspiring people to travel, which I think is a good goal, but it is self-serving. And I went from that and surfing every day and partying and eating good food to on the floor of my aunt's house in Jolon, yelling at a camera about politics and live streaming about the war, and going to Kibbutz Be'eri and seeing the horrific things that happen, and going to the Nova site and running from missiles. And it's like a 180, 360 doesn't even explain the shift in reality. It's a totally different universe. And people who know me from then, from just 2 years ago, say like, you're unrecognizable to who you are today. The reality is he was in there, just like he didn't have a reason to come out. And it was a very, 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 very like big mental switch that I had to make in my mind.
And how do you feel about it?
I love it.
Yeah?
I love it.
Do you like who you've become?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's different. It's not the lovey, like gushy person that I was before, because I think I'd always represent myself as a kind of a bit of a teddy bear. But it's what's needed. Like, I always look at it as like, I didn't make these rules. I didn't make this framework for the way we have to fight, especially the media war. It's dirty. It's nasty. It's full of lies. It's full of propaganda by corrupt governments who are funding it. Like, I mean, the paper trail is so easy to find from Iran and Qatar and Russia and China, who are funding and embezzling just Western society and Israel to make us look bad. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm a regular person that's not funded by anybody. Anybody who's a part of my community, my hundreds of thousands of subscribers, know that everything I did, I built on by myself. Nobody's fought for me. Nobody's come to help me except for my subscribers and my viewers. No government agency, the Israeli government has ignored me when I've reached out. So I don't get assistance from anybody. And that's the type of thing that in your head, like if you build it up on your own, if you work towards it, I really, really believe at the end of the day it works out.